How do I use versus code with WSL, Windows Subsystem for Linux? If you are curious about how to use Visual Studio Code with Windows Subsystem for Linux, you are in for a treat. This combination opens up a world of possibilities for game development and other software projects. Let's walk through the steps to get you started. First, you need to enable Windows Subsystem for Linux on your Windows machine. To do this, type Features in the Windows search bar and select Turn Windows Features on or off. In the dialog that appears, check the box for Windows Subsystem for Linux and click OK. Alternatively, you can run PowerShell as an administrator and execute the command Enable Windows Optional Feature Online Feature Name Microsoft Windows Subsystem Linux. After that, restart your computer when prompted. Next, you will want to install a Linux distribution. A popular choice is Ubuntu, which you can find in the Microsoft Store. If you are using a recent version of Windows, you can simply run the command WSL install in the command prompt. This command will install all necessary components, set WSL version 2 as the default, and download Ubuntu for you. Restart your machine if needed. Once you have WSL set up, it is time to install Visual Studio Code. If you have not done so already, download and install Visual Studio Code for Windows from the official website. Now, let's add the WSL extension to Visual Studio Code. Open Visual Studio Code and navigate to the extensions view. Search for the remote WSL extension and install it. This extension allows Visual Studio Code to run within the Linux environment provided by WSL. With everything installed, open your WSL terminal. You can do this by typing WSL in the Windows command prompt or the Start menu. Navigate to your project directory inside the Linux file system or your mounted Windows drives, like /mnt/c/users/yourname/projects. To open your current folder in Visual Studio Code, run the command code. The first time you do this, Visual Studio Code will install a small server inside WSL to enable communication between the Windows Visual Studio Code client and the Linux environment. You will see a WSL distro indicator in the bottom left corner, confirming that you are connected to WSL. Now you can start developing using Visual Studio Code in WSL. All file operations, terminal commands, and extensions will run inside the Linux environment. This setup gives you access to native Linux tools and utilities, which is especially useful for game development. You can configure build tasks, debugging, and IntelliSense for languages like C++ using Linux compilers and debuggers installed in WSL. Additionally, you can open folders from either the Linux file system or the Windows file system mounted inside WSL. The remote status bar in Visual Studio Code allows you to switch between local and WSL contexts easily. Integration with Git and other development tools inside WSL is seamless, making your workflow smoother. If your Windows and WSL versions support it, you can even run graphical Linux applications through WSLG, further enhancing your development experience. Using Visual Studio Code with Windows Subsystem for Linux combines the power of Linux development tools with the convenience of the Windows desktop. This setup is becoming increasingly popular in game development and other software projects that requiring Linux environments while benefiting from Windows-based tools. You can utilize Linux native build systems, debuggers, and libraries while maintaining a familiar Windows workflow through Visual Studio Code.